Hi, and welcome to Dental Advisor Talks. I'm Matt Cowan, Director of Research at Dental Advisor's Biomaterials Research Center, and I'm here with Dr. John Powers, Professor Emeritus at U of T Health School of Dentistry at Houston, and co-founder and president of Dental Advisor. We're talking today with Dr. Price, who I believe is one of the world's foremost experts on dental light curing and resin polymerization. But for those of us who've been living under a rock, why don't you tell us a little about your background?
Yeah, hi, it's Richard Price here. I suppose Canada is living under a rock up there. I live on the east coast of Canada, a place called Halifax, and I'm a professor at Dalhousie University. It's right on the east coast. We actually get quite a few American dental students attending up there. I think it's because the price of education in Canada is a bit cheaper than most places in the States. I've been involved with light curing for over 20 years now and seen lots of changes. And as a practicing dentist, I started out first of all with UV curing and then moved into halogen, briefly played with pack lights, and now, of course, everything is LED lights. So we're using LED lights for all of our curing now, and we've seen huge changes over the last 10 years in the quality and the performance of dental curing lights.
Yeah. So when it comes to the development of light curing units, what aspects of the laboratory research do you find to be the most important for clinical use?
Well, laboratory testing is required to ensure that the products that are put out on the market meet the minimum safety standards. That's really important.
So what parts of the laboratory research are the most important for the performance of the curing lights that you're finding?
Well, obviously, the curing light has to cure the resin. When you think about it, that the manufacturers sell you a liquid bonding agent and a paste, and they are essentially useless products.
Mm-hmm.
Manufacturers, of course, will get very upset with me for saying that these products are useless, but they are, because they need to have a light that's shone on them. So in that respect, the curing light is absolutely essential. We're using the curing light now for placing, obviously restorations, curing of bonding agents. We're using it in orthodontics. We're using it to cure the cement through our crowns we're placing. Using it for sealants. We're using light curing pretty much in every procedure we do in the dental office nowadays.
Yeah. So what have you found to be the most important advances in the last 5 to 10 years in the development of curing lights to improve?
Sure.
This is a critical part of all of these areas of dentistry you just mentioned.
So I said that the light has to work. It has to cure the material. It has to transform this useless paste into a wonderful material. And if you go to any dental lab, or you get a chance to go to a manufacturer and you see how they're curing the materials, they cure them really, really well. And there's no doubt that when you cure these materials well, you get wonderful results. That's absolutely crucial to achieving the results that the manufacturer intends. And so please listen to me now. I've gone from saying that these are useless products to saying that they're wonderful products, but they have to be handled correctly. So in order to handle them correctly and convert them into beautiful products, then you need to have a light that is going to deliver enough power, enough photons, enough energy to the actual material. If you don't put enough in, you're going to get an inferior result. So we've seen lights coming on the market now that are more powerful. We've seen lights that have larger tips on them, so they cover more of the tooth. We've seen lights that have better beam profiles so that the output from the light is more uniform over the tip.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the past, we've seen LED curing lights. And I'll just go back for a second and say it was particularly prevalent with LED lights because I think we all know that LEDs are actually fairly small compared to a halogen bulb.
Mm-hmm.
The halogen bulb has got a big reflector behind it, and it's got some filters in front of it. And it actually, in most cases, gives a nice kind of even light. But the LED starts out with this just small little emitter. Small, not quite a pinhead, but it's pretty small. It's like a matchstick size. And then suddenly it spreads out, to cover something that is 10 or 11 millimeters in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
So the optics are really important in the lights. And before there wasn't much attention paid to the optics. But now, good companies produce lights that, as I said, have very good beam profiles and very uniform light outputs. So they've kind of focused on that. So to really answer your question, we've seen more powerful lights, better beam profiles, better optics, better design. And that's what's happened over the last 10 years.
Yeah, Doctor.
Does the ergonomics of the light curing unit important clinically?
Oh my goodness, yes. Ergonomics are a big thing. If you go to my lectures, you'll see I always have a section on that, because you can have a curing light that works fantastically in the lab, but you actually can't get it in the mouth. And I'm not joking, there are lights on the market where you have to open your mouth 65 millimeters to even access the second molar tooth. The ergonomics of some lights is just appalling. In contrast, other lights on the market from good manufacturers are very well designed, and you don't have to open your mouth quite so wide. So ergonomics are really important. Also, the ergonomics have to allow good infection control. You want to have something with a fewer number of seams as possible, and we've seen lights on the market. They're metal casings. They're really easy to clean, and so they have infection control right at the forefront. Yeah. I don't think you want me to mention any brand names, but I think you'll kind of know that there are some out there that are really good in that respect. Yeah. Sorry, and the other thing that you need to think of is, let's face it, these things do get dropped on the floor. Mm-hmm. So, some curing lights are a lot more durable than others. And, again, let's face it, if you drop a curing light on the floor and you break the light guide, that can be several $100s to replace. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're not cheap things. So, not the good ones anyway. So, you have to watch out for that. So, you're looking for a curing light that's going to allow good access, fewer seams as possible, good infection control, good durability.
Yeah, and I've been struck by some of your research showing the how stable the power is over the charge cycle and over just 20 seconds of curing, and the differences in some of those lights.
Yeah, so that's not really kind of durability. That's more of like sort of it's more a case of how well the manufacturer designed the light. I think we all know that batteries do lose their charge over time, and so the voltage and the output does decrease with time. So you have to have something called voltage and current regulation in these units. Otherwise, what happens is that the power output declines as the battery discharges. Now, obviously, you don't want that to happen. You don't want the first zap of the light to be twice as powerful as the last zap. So you need to have something with good voltage and current control.
Right. Yeah, quality control is, I think, something that's very important that is often overlooked. Yeah. So what do you see as the greatest opportunity for advances in light curing units in the future?
Well, that's a good question, actually. It would be nice if we didn't have to use them at all. It would be nice if everything was self-curing and we didn't have to use curing lights, because, actually, let's face it, there are many places in the world where, you can't have a curing light. So I'd like to see manufacturers get rid of them, will be one thing. But let's face it, you asked the question about how would you improve them. Well, I'd like to see all curing lights delivering a nice, good beam profile. I'd like to see them giving a good power output, stable output over time. But the other thing that you might want to kind of consider if you were a manufacturer making a curing light is, it'd be nice if it, for example, had a barcode reader in it. So you may say, well, what do you want that for? Well, we're facing a big problem right now with counterfeit products. And it would be kind of neat if you could shine the light, the same device, to shine it on the composite you want to use. And it would tell you, based on the barcode or the QR code, whether or not the product was counterfeit. But it could also program the curing light to cure it for the correct or recommended amount of time. So you might then, you would know that the composite has to be cured for 20 seconds or 40 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever. That just would be a quick thing to do. It would kind of do two things at the same time. And it would get the other thing about, I mentioned the QR code and such like, and saying the counterfeit, but it could also be expired products. many things.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I think that would be great because, as you know, you have to cure darker shades a little longer. You need to, different composites require different levels of energy. What are some recommendations for clinicians' use of the curing light? Give a few.
Well, the first recommendation that I'd really recommend and strongly emphasize is please read the instructions that come with a curing light. I think that's very important that you know what the manufacturer says you can and cannot do.
Until we have QR codes that tell you.
Until we have QR codes that tell you everything, or the light speaks to you and says, hey, do this or do that. So read instructions, and then also pay attention when you're light curing. So many times when I'm watching students doing light curing, the light is in the mouth, and that's about as much as you can say. That they're talking to the assistant, they're doing something else, their mind's elsewhere, they've got their head turned the other way, and it's very easy to do. So I would suggest, just pay attention. Next thing I would suggest is when you're doing light curing, you want to bring that light as close as you can to the actual restoration.
Mm.
So what I would suggest is you start light curing from a few millimeters away, because the last thing you want to do is destroy all that beautiful anatomy you just put into the restoration. So start from a few millimeters away. No, don't touch it. But then, because the top surface cures so quickly, after about 1 or 2 seconds, depending on how powerful the light is, bring the light tip in as close as possible. In fact, actually touch the composite. Bring it as close as you can and hold it there with your fingers. I call it the two-handed technique. One hand to hold the light, one hand to hold the light tip.
Mm.
And that keeps it over the restoration when you're in the patient's mouth, because, again, it's not like in the lab bench where you've got a specimen clamped in one spot. Patients move. And so you want to make sure that your finger and the light moves with the patient, so you're holding onto it. But there's one other really good thing that holding the light tip really does for you. You get to feel when too much heat is being produced.
Mm.
Because, some of these curing lights we have now, and I spoke about them being, good and high-powered and such like, some are really high-powered. And, if it reaches a point where you say, ouch, my finger's beginning to hurt, then it's probably a good idea to turn the light off. And you can blow some air on the tooth and then go back and carry on with the light curing. But the heat's actually a bit of an issue, especially with the longer curing times. It's not so much with the like a 1 or 2 second. It doesn't really get much chance to build up. But if you have a high power curing light and you use that for like 5 or 6 seconds, you can really get some heat coming out of that.
All right. Thank you so much for coming to visit us, Dr. Price, and for sharing your knowledge and tips for curing dental materials. You can find out more about Dr. Price's research at rprice.ca or his YouTube channel, Price Curing Lab.